The wind howled through the broken slat in the kitchen window, same as it had for 3 winters now. Margaret Thornton didn't move to fix it. What was the point? The cold that seeped through that crack was nothing compared to the emptiness that filled every corner of this too large house. She sat at the oak table, her fingers tracing the grain of the wood, following the same path they'd traced 1,000 times before. Outside, the Texas sun was setting, painting the sky the color of old blood. From where she sat, she could see the 3 small mounds behind the horse barn, each marked with a wooden cross that Samuel had carved with his own hands. The first one, little James, hadn't lived to see his 2nd winter. Then came Mary, who'd struggled through 4 years before the fever took her, and baby William, he'd lasted just 3 days, his tiny lungs too weak for this harsh world. Margaret stood, her joints protesting after sitting too long. At 34, she felt ancient, worn down like the limestone cliffs that bordered her property. Samuel had been gone 2 years now, killed by a Comanche arrow during a cattle drive to Fort Worth. The other ranchers had brought his body back, wrapped in canvas, his face already strange and unfamiliar in death. She moved to the parlor, where the cradle still sat by the window. Foolish to keep it. She knew. The other ranch wives whispered about it when they thought she couldn't hear. Poor Margaret, they'd say, keeping that empty cradle like she's waiting for a miracle. But what they didn't understand was that the cradle wasn't empty out of hope. It was empty out of defiance. As long as it sat there, waiting, she could pretend that her life hadn't ended with those 3 small graves and 1 larger one in the town cemetery. The house creaked around her as night fell. 5 bedrooms. Samuel had insisted on building. We'll fill them all with young ones. He'd promised, his eyes bright with dreams that would never come true. Now those rooms sat empty, doors closed, gathering dust and shadows. Margaret walked to the iron safe hidden behind Samuel's portrait. The combination came easily, their wedding date, though the numbers meant little now. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, lay the gold. 43 ounces carefully hoarded over 15 years of cattle drives, horse trading, and scrimping on everything from flour to fabric. Samuel had called it their future, their children's inheritance. She lifted one of the bars, feeling its weight. What good was gold to a woman with no children to leave it to her sister back in Missouri had written, suggesting she sell the ranch and come east. Start fresh, Ellen had said. But Margaret knew there was no starting fresh at her age, not with a womb that had proven itself a grave 3 times over. The idea had come to her slowly, like water seeping through stone. She'd heard the stories from the Mexican traders who sometimes stopped for water. Comanche women who couldn't bear children would sometimes adopt captive children, raising them as their own. And the Comanche had orphans, 2 children whose parents had been killed in the endless cycle of raids and revenge that bloodied the frontier. It was madness. She knew, the very people who'd killed Samuel. But in her dreams, she didn't see painted warriors. She saw children, brown-skinned perhaps, speaking a language she didn't understand. But children nonetheless. Children who needed a mother as desperately as she needed to be one. Margaret returned the gold to the safe and walked to Samuel's old desk. Her hands shook only slightly as she took up the pen. The letter was brief, written in the careful script the schoolmarm had taught her so many years ago. To the chiefs of the Comanche people, I am a woman alone, with gold but no children. I propose a trade. I will give all I have for 1 child who needs a home. Send word if you will meet. I will wait at Broken Creek, at the full moon. She folded the letter carefully, then walked to the kitchen. From the pantry, she took down the bundle of trade goods she'd prepared: tobacco, coffee, a steel knife, peace offerings, or bribes, depending on how one looked at it. The Mexican trader, Joaquin, was due tomorrow. He moved between both worlds, trusted by neither but necessary to both. He would carry her message, for a price, and then she would wait. Margaret stood on the porch, looking out at the vast emptiness of the Texas plains. Somewhere out there, perhaps, was a child who needed her as much as she needed them. The other ranchers would call her mad. The townspeople would shun her. But what did she care for their opinions? She'd already lost everything that mattered. Except hope, that stubborn, foolish hope that refused to die despite all evidence that it should. The wind picked up again, and she could smell rain coming. Good. The land needed it. And perhaps, if she was very lucky, the rain would wash away some of the blood that soaked this ground, make room for something new to grow. She went back inside, leaving the door unlatched. There was nothing left to steal except gold, and she was about to give that away freely in the parlor. She straightened the cushions in the cradle, smoothing the small quilt her mother had made. Tomorrow, Joaquin would come. Tomorrow, she would set her plan in motion. And perhaps, in a month's time, this house would no longer echo with emptiness. Margaret Thornton sat by the window, watching the storm clouds gather. And for the first time in 2 years, she allowed herself to imagine the sound of children's laughter filling these rooms. The dust cloud appeared first, a brown smudge against the morning sky. Margaret had been watching from the porch for 3 days, ever since Joaquin confirmed he'd delivered her message. Her hands gripped the Winchester across her lap, though she knew it was useless. If they meant her harm, one rifle wouldn't matter. 7 riders emerged from the shimmer of heat. Their horses moved in that easy, ground-eating lope that spoke of men who lived in the saddle. As they drew closer, Margaret's mouth went dry. These weren't the half-starved raiders the newspapers described. These were warriors in their prime, faces painted with ochre and black, feathers twisted in their long hair. The lead rider raised his hand, and the group stopped just beyond rifle range. Smart, cautious. He dismounted with fluid grace, and Margaret found herself studying him, taller than she'd expected, perhaps 40 years, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Scars marked his chest where his shirt hung open, old wounds that spoke of survival against odds. "You are the woman who sent word." His English came slowly but clear. Margaret stood, setting the rifle aside. Her legs trembled, but she forced herself to walk down the porch steps. "I am Margaret Thornton." "I am called Standing Eagle by your people." He studied her with the same intensity she'd given him. "Your message spoke of trade, gold for a child." "Yes." The word came out as a whisper. She cleared her throat, tried again. "Yes, I have gold. I need a child to raise." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, disgust. She couldn't tell. He said something in Comanche to his companions. One of them, younger with fresh scars across his cheek, responded sharply. An argument, clearly, though she couldn't understand the words. Standing Eagle held up his hand for silence. "Why do you come to us? Your people have orphanages, churches that give away children." Margaret had prepared for this question, rehearsed her answer, but standing here, faced with the man whose people had killed her husband, the words tangled in her throat. "They won't give a child to a woman alone. They say I need a husband, a proper home." She gestured at the ranch around them. "I have a home. I have the means to provide. What I don't have is hope of bearing my own." "And you would take a Comanche child, raise one of our blood among your people who hate us?" The question cut deep because it was fair. "I've buried 3 babies behind that barn," she said, pointing. "My husband lies in town, killed by—" She stopped, forced herself to meet his eyes. "Killed in the fighting. I know what hate feels like. I also know what empty arms feel like. One feeling is stronger than the other." Standing Eagle walked closer, close enough that she could smell horses and smoke and something wild. His men tensed, hands moving to weapons. "You are not afraid." "I'm terrified," Margaret admitted. "But I'm more afraid of spending the rest of my life alone in that house, listening to the wind through empty rooms." He circled her slowly, and she fought the urge to turn, to keep him in sight. When he completed his circuit, he stood before her again. "Show me this gold." Margaret nodded toward the house. Inside In the safe. You would invite enemies into your home. Are you my enemy? She asked. Or are you a father who might understand why a woman would risk everything for a child? This time she was certain of what she saw in his eyes, pain, quickly hidden. Standing Eagle spoke again to his men, then gestured for her to lead. Only he followed, leaving the others with the horses. Inside, the house felt smaller with his presence. He moved carefully, noting exits, windows, the rifle mounted above the fireplace. When she knelt before the safe, her fingers shook so badly it took 3 tries to work the combination. The gold gleamed dully in its oilcloth wrapping. Standing Eagle lifted 1 bar, weighing it in his hand. This is considerable wealth. It's nothing, Margaret said. Metal, cold and useless, without purpose. Your people kill for such metal. People kill for many reasons. She met his gaze steadily. I'm trying to create life, not end it. Standing Eagle set the gold down carefully. You speak of creating life, but you ask for a child already made. What of their mother, their people? I thought orphans' children who have no one. Even orphans have tribe, have blood, have heritage. His voice carried no accusation, just fact. Would you strip that away? Margaret sank into Samuel's old chair. She hadn't considered, I wouldn't prevent them from knowing who they are. I couldn't teach them your ways, but I wouldn't forbid them either. Wouldn't forbid. Standing Eagle made a sound that might have been a laugh. Generous. And when your people spit on this child, when they refuse to sell you goods, when cowboys shoot at them for sport. Each question landed like a blow. Margaret forced herself to answer honestly. I don't know. I only know that I would protect them with my life, that they would never doubt they were wanted, loved. Standing Eagle moved to the window where the cradle sat. His fingers brushed the quilt, gentle as any father's touch. My son died 3 winters past, the sickness that comes with spots. Measles, Margaret whispered. I'm sorry. Your medicine might have saved him, but your doctors won't treat Comanche children. He turned from the window. Now you ask me to give you what was taken from me. No, Margaret said quickly. Not take, trade, share. A child who needs a home for a woman who needs a child. Both sides gaining. Pretty words. Standing Eagle returned to the safe, studying the gold again. I must speak with my people. This is not a decision made lightly. How long? 7 days. When the moon is full, as you said in your message, I will come again, with or without a child. If I bring no one, you will not send messages again. This offer ends. Margaret nodded. I understand. Standing Eagle moved toward the door, then paused. That cradle, it has held your children. Yes, all 3. Yet they died. The words cut deep, but Margaret sensed no cruelty in them. Yes, they died. You believe a Comanche child would survive where your own did not. I believe. Margaret struggled for words. I believe that some children are meant to survive everything. That strength isn't about blood, but about will. And I believe that a child who has already survived loss might be strong enough for this hard life. Standing Eagle studied her for a long moment. Perhaps we shall see. He left then, moving with that same fluid grace. From the porch, Margaret watched the 7 riders disappear into the heat shimmer, becoming dust, then nothing. Her legs gave out, and she sank onto the steps, shaking with delayed reaction. 7 days. She had 7 days to prepare for an answer that would either fill her empty arms or leave them forever barren. 7 days to hope, to doubt, to imagine 1,000 different futures. Inside the house, the cradle waited by the window, patient as always. Margaret touched the quilt her mother had made, wondering if it would finally warm a living child or remain forever cold. 7 days. She could survive 7 days. She'd survived worse. But as the sun climbed higher and the heat pressed down, Margaret Thornton wondered if hope might be the cruelest burden of all. The fire crackled low in the center of the lodge, casting dancing shadows on the buffalo hide walls. Standing Eagle sat cross-legged, staring into the flames, but his mind was far away in a small ranch house where a white woman kept an empty cradle by her window. "You're thinking of her offer again?" Broken Wing's voice cut through the silence. His friend of 30 years sat across from him, face hard with disapproval. "The council meets tomorrow. You know what I will say." "I know." Standing Eagle added another piece of mesquite to the fire. "You will say she is the enemy, that her people killed my brother, that this is a trap." "Because it is truth." Broken Wing leaned forward. "Her husband rode with the Rangers. How many of our people did he kill before we killed him?" She didn't speak of revenge, only emptiness. Empty arms can hold knives as easily as children. Standing Eagle said nothing. He was remembering his son, little Fox, burning with fever, calling for water that couldn't cool him. The spotted sickness had taken 12 children that winter. The white man's disease, spreading through their camp like prairie fire. "You think one white woman's kindness can change what is?" Broken Wing pressed. "You think she can protect a Comanche child from her own people's hate? I think—" Standing Eagle paused, choosing words carefully. "I think hate and love sometimes grow from the same root. She has lost children. We have children who have lost mothers. Perhaps something new can grow from shared grief." A woman's laugh, bitter as winter wind, came from the lodge entrance. Singing Rain entered without ceremony. Widows had different freedoms. She'd lost her husband and 2 sons in the last raid on the settlements. Men talking of grief like they understand it. She settled by the fire, movements sharp with contained anger. "You want to give our children to the enemy." Standing Eagle. "I want to consider all paths," he corrected. "The buffalo grow fewer. The blue coats grow stronger. What future do we offer orphans? Empty bellies and running? Better hungry and free than fat in chains." Broken Wing spat. "The child would not be in chains." Standing Eagle said, "I saw this woman, looked in her eyes. She doesn't seek a slave." "What does she seek then?" Singing Rain challenged. Standing Eagle remembered Margaret Thornton's face, the desperate hope barely held in check. "What you sought when you lost your sons. What I sought when little Fox died. Someone to fill the silence." Singing Rain's face softened slightly. "And you think this is good, to let our blood be raised by those who spill it?" "I think—" Standing Eagle chose his words like selecting arrows. "I think the world changes whether we will it or not. Perhaps one child, raised between worlds, might build a bridge." "Bridges can be burned," Broken Wing warned. "Yes, but first they must be built." The argument continued long into the night. Others joined Greyhorse, who'd lost his family to soldier bullets. Moonshadow, whose daughter had been taken by Mexican traders and never seen again. Thunder Walker, young and full of rage at the shrinking of their lands. But also came voices Standing Eagle hadn't expected. Spotted Fawn, who'd raised 3 orphaned nephews, spoke of the burden on the tribe. Resources stretched thin. Too many mouths and not enough hunters. An old white buffalo, ancient and respected, who simply said, "Sometimes the spirits move in ways we don't understand. Sometimes enemies become allies through children." When the formal council convened at dawn, Standing Eagle was tired but resolute. The chiefs sat in their circle, pipe passing hand to hand, smoke carrying prayers to the sky. Each spoke in turn, words measured and careful. "This white woman offers gold." Standing Eagle began when his turn came. "But gold means nothing to us. What matters is the child. We have 7 orphans in camp, 7 children who sleep in different lodges each night, who own no ponies, who have no one to teach them their father's songs. Better orphaned among their people than raised by enemies." Thunder Walker interrupted, earning sharp looks from the elders. "Let him speak," commanded Two Bears, the peace chief. Standing Eagle continued, "I propose this: we choose one child, not the youngest, who won't remember, Not the oldest, who carry too much anger. One who might adapt. One who might return to us with knowledge of their world. You speak of using a child as a spy, Greyhorse asked. I speak of survival, Standing Eagle replied. The white settlers grow like grass after rain. We can fight until the last warrior falls, or we can learn, adapt, find new ways to protect our people. And if she harms the child, Singing Rain asked, if she beats them, starves them, forces them to forget our ways, then I will retrieve them. Standing Eagle said simply, I will watch, visit, ensure the agreement is honored. Two bears, silent until now, spoke. You would take this responsibility, watch over this arrangement. I would. Standing Eagle met the old chief's eyes. My son is dead. My wife returned to her people after his death. I have no family to neglect. Let this be my duty. The pipe made another circuit. Dawn light crept into the lodge, painting everything gold and shadow. Finally, two bears called for the decision. All who agree, stand. Standing Eagle rose first. White Buffalo's aged joints protested, but he stood. Spotted Fawn joined them. One by one, others rose, not many, but enough. Enough to carry the decision. All who oppose, stand. Broken Wing leaped up, followed by Thunderwalker and others. The lodge divided almost evenly. Two bears counted carefully. 7 speak for, 6 against. The proposal passes. He fixed Standing Eagle with a stern gaze. But conditions must be met. The child must be willing. The woman must prove herself worthy. And you, Standing Eagle, will answer to this council if harm comes from this choice. I accept these conditions. As the council dispersed, Broken Wing gripped Standing Eagle's shoulder. I pray you're right, old friend. I pray this bridge you build doesn't become a path for our destruction. Standing Eagle covered his friend's hand with his own. And I pray it becomes a path to something better than eternal war. Later, alone in his lodge, Standing Eagle prepared for the selection. 7 orphans, 7 young lives already marked by loss. How did one choose which child might bridge 2 worlds? Which spirit was strong enough to remain Comanche while learning white ways? He thought of Little Fox. How quick he'd been to laugh. How eager to learn both warrior skills and gentler arts. Margaret Thornton had spoken of strength being about will, not blood. Tomorrow, he would walk among the orphans, search for that spark of will that might survive transplanting. Outside, coyotes called to each other across the darkening plains. Standing Eagle listened to their wild song and wondered if, 7 days hence, he would deliver hope or heartbreak to the white woman who kept an empty cradle. Either way, the world would shift a little. Change would come like water through stone, slow, inevitable, reshaping everything in its path. He closed his eyes and saw his son's face one more time before letting sleep take him. In dreams. Little Fox played with a pale-skinned child while Standing Eagle and a white woman watched, neither understanding the other's words, but both understanding the universal language of parental love. When he woke, he knew which child to choose. Marshal Robert Kane had been watching the Thornton Ranch for 3 days. His deputy, a green kid named Peterson, shifted nervously in his saddle as they sat hidden in the scrub brush overlooking the property. Marshal, we've been out here since Tuesday. Maybe the Mexican was lying. Kane spat tobacco juice and kept his eyes on the house below. Joaquin don't lie when you've got a knife to his throat. She met with Comanches. She's planning something. The morning sun climbed higher, baking the earth beneath them. Kane had been marshal in Clearwater for 8 years, had buried enough settlers to know that the only good Indian was a dead one. And here was the widow Thornton, whose own husband had been killed by these savages, meeting with them in secret. There, Peterson whispered. Someone's coming. Kane watched Margaret Thornton emerge from the house, moving with purpose toward the barn. She wore a simple calico dress, her hair pinned up proper, looking every inch the respectable widow. But Kane knew better. Respectable women didn't send messages to enemy camps. Let's go, he said, spurring his horse down the slope. Margaret was drawing water from the well when they rode up. To her credit, she didn't startle, just set the bucket down carefully and turned to face them. Marshal Kane, Deputy Peterson. Her voice was steady, but Kane caught the slight tremor in her hands. What brings you out this way? Kane didn't dismount, preferring the advantage of height. Heard some disturbing news, Mrs. Thornton, about you having visitors. I have many visitors. It's a working ranch. Comanche visitors. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Margaret's chin lifted slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Now, that's interesting. Kane leaned forward in his saddle. Because Joaquin tells a different story. Says you paid him to carry a message to the Comanche camp. Says warriors came here not 4 days past. Joaquin must be mistaken. Joaquin was real specific, especially after we explained the penalties for aiding communication with hostile Indians. Kane let that sink in. That's treason. Mrs. Thornton. They hang people for treason. Peterson shifted uncomfortably, but kept quiet. Good boy. He was learning when to let silence do the work. Margaret's composure cracked slightly. I wanted to trade for horses. Everyone knows the Comanche have the best horses. Horses. Kane smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You got a bill of sale for these horses. The trade hasn't happened yet. Convenient. Kane dismounted now, moving closer. Margaret held her ground, but he could smell the fear on her. You know what I think? I think you're planning something. Maybe revenge for your husband. Maybe something worse. That's ridiculous. Is it? Kane circled her slowly. Woman living alone, no family, no prospects. Lot of gold in that house. I hear maybe you're thinking of buying safe passage, heading south to Mexico. This is my home. I'm not going anywhere. No, then why meet with the very savages who killed your man? Margaret's eyes flashed. My husband is dead. Nothing will bring him back. I need horses to run this ranch. That's all. Kane stopped directly in front of her. I'm going to be watching you, Mrs. Thornton. Every move you make, every visitor you get, and if I see one feather, one moccasin print, one sign that you're treating with the enemy. He left the threat unfinished. Is that all? Marshal, for now. Kane remounted, then looked down at her. Your husband was a good man. Rode with the Rangers before he settled down. He'd be spinning in his grave knowing you were talking with his killers. Something shifted in Margaret's face. My husband is beyond caring what I do. Maybe, but this town ain't. You bring trouble here, and we'll deal with it. Permanent-like. He wheeled his horse around, Peterson following. They rode 100 yards before Peterson spoke. You really think she's planning something? Marshal, I know she is. Question is what? Kane glanced back. Margaret still stood by the well, watching them leave. Double the patrols out this way, and put word out anyone sees Comanches near the Thornton place. They're to shoot first and ask questions later. Yes, sir. They rode in silence for a while before Kane spoke again. Peterson, you know why we beat the Mexicans, why we'll beat the Indians. Superior firearms. No, boy, because we don't compromise. We don't negotiate. We don't try to understand them or live with them. We push them out or put them down. That's the only way civilization advances. What about folks like Mrs. Thornton? She ain't Mexican or Indian. No, but she's forgotten which side she's on. That makes her worse than both. Kane spat again. Mark my words. Boy, that woman's going to bring trouble. And when she does, we'll be ready. Back at the ranch, Margaret sank onto the porch steps, legs shaking. She'd known this would come, but knowing and facing it were different things. Kane's threat wasn't idle. She'd seen what happened to Indian sympathizers burned out, driven off, sometimes worse. But the cradle still sat empty. The house still echoed with absence. What was the threat of death compared to the certainty of a life without purpose? She thought of Standing Eagle's steady gaze, the pain hidden beneath warrior stoicism, two peoples who hated each other, yet bound by the universal grief of lost children. If that wasn't ground for understanding, what was? Margaret stood, brushing dust from her skirt. 3 more days until the full moon. 3 days to decide if hope was worth the risk. 3 days to prepare for either a child or disappointment. Inside, she pulled Samuel's old ledger from the shelf and began making lists. Things a child would need. Clothes. But what size food? But what did Comanche children eat? Books? Could they read? Would they want to learn? So many questions. So many ways this could go wrong. But as the afternoon wore on, and she filled page after page with plans and preparations, Margaret felt something she hadn't experienced in 2 years. Purpose. Marshal Kane could watch all he wanted. The town could whisper and threaten. But until that cradle held a child, she would risk everything. Some chances came only once, and some bridges, once offered, couldn't be unoffered. The sun set behind the hills, painting the sky crimson. Somewhere out there, Standing Eagle was choosing a child. Somewhere, a young life was about to change forever. Margaret touched the window where the cradle waited and whispered a prayer to whoever might be listening, Samuel's Christian God, the Comanche spirits, or simply the vast indifference of the Texas sky. Let this work. Let something good come from all this loss. Let love be stronger than hate. Just this once. The prairie wind answered with its eternal silence, carrying the scent of sage and possibility. The council lodge filled with shadows and firelight as the elders took their places. Standing Eagle had called this gathering as promised, and now the weight of decision pressed upon them all. Outside, the full moon rose like a silver eye, watching their deliberations. Two Bears, the peace chief, raised his hand for silence. Standing Eagle brings the matter before us again. The white woman waits. A child must be chosen, or the offer refused. I say we refuse. Broken Wing stood immediately. 4 days have passed, and my heart hasn't changed. This path leads to sorrow. And empty bellies lead to joy, Spotted Fawn countered. Winter comes soon. 7 orphans strain our resources. If one finds a home, among enemies, Thunder Walker interrupted. You speak of giving away our future. I speak of reality, Spotted Fawn shot back. How many horses do we have? How much pemmican stored? The buffalo herds grow smaller each season. Pride fills no stomachs. Standing Eagle remained silent, watching the familiar arguments circle like buzzards. But tonight felt different. Tonight, decision couldn't be delayed. Let us hear from Grey Horse. 2 Bears commanded. You've been silent these 4 days. The older warrior stood slowly. His wife had died birthing their son. The boy had followed her within hours. I've watched the orphans, studied them as Standing Eagle asked. Young Hawk shows promise. Small Hawk? Someone corrected. The boy insists on being called Small Hawk. Yes, Grey Horse nodded. 9 winters old. Parents killed when the soldiers attacked our winter camp. He survives, but barely. No family claims him. He sleeps where he can, eats what's given. But his eyes... Grey Horse paused. His eyes hold intelligence, and something else. What else? 2 Bears prompted. Acceptance. He knows he has no future here. I've heard him tell the younger orphans that no one will remember them when they die, that they're already ghosts. Silence greeted this pronouncement. The fire crackled, sending sparks toward the smoke hole. A child who thinks he's already dead. White Buffalo mused, his ancient voice barely above a whisper. Perhaps such a one could live between worlds. The dead see things the living cannot. You speak in riddles, grandfather, Thunder Walker said impatiently. Do I? White Buffalo's milky eyes found the young warrior. This boy has already lost everything. What more can the whites take from him? But a mother's love, even from an enemy. that might restore what was stolen. Pretty words, Broken Wing spat. But what of our ways, our language, our gods? We'll remain here. Standing Eagle finally spoke. I've thought on this. The boy doesn't go forever. He goes to learn, to grow strong, to understand our enemy. You would make a spy of a child. I would make a bridge of shared sorrow. Standing Eagle met each elder's gaze. This woman buried 3 children. Smallhawk buried both parents. Perhaps 2 broken hearts can mend each other. And when he forgets us, Singing Rain asked softly, when white ways seduce him, then he forgets, Standing Eagle said simply. But if we keep him here, he dies forgotten anyway. At least this way. Someone might remember his name. 2 bears called for silence again. We've heard all arguments. Now we vote. But first, the boy himself should speak. Bring Smallhawk. A murmur of surprise rippled through the lodge. Children rarely attended council. Orphans, never. But 2 Bears' word was law. Smallhawk entered minutes later, escorted by Spotted Fawn. The boy was small for 9 winters, with intelligent eyes that darted everywhere, measuring exits, counting warriors, survival habits learned young. Sit. 2 Bears commanded gently. We speak of your future. The boy sat cross-legged, back straight despite obvious fear. I have no future, grandfather. Perhaps, perhaps not. 2 Bears studied him. A white woman offers to take you, raise you as her son, feed you, shelter you, teach you white ways. What say you? Smallhawk's eyes widened. Why would she want me? Her children died. Her arms are empty. Many have empty arms. They don't want me. This one might, but you would leave the people, live among whites, learn their tongue, their ways. Could you do this? Smallhawk was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried unusual maturity. I already live among strangers. At least with her, I'd be her stranger. Not everyone's. You would go willingly. Would I have a bed, my own bed? Yes. Food every day. Yes. And she would. Want me there, not just tolerate me. Standing Eagle spoke gently. She offers all her gold for a child. Yes, she would want you. Smallhawk's composure cracked slightly. Then yes, I would go. He looked around the lodge defiantly. I know you think me weak, but I'm tired of being hungry, tired of being no one's son. If this white woman wants me, then I'll be hers. Even knowing her people killed your parents, Broken Wing challenged. The boy's jaw tightened. Our people killed her husband, death for death, but she still wants a child. Maybe, his voice dropped. Maybe she can look past blood. Maybe I can too. 2 Bears dismissed the boy with surprising gentleness. When Smallhawk left, the chief stood. The child chooses his path. Now we choose ours. All who agree, stand. One by one, warriors rose. Standing Eagle counted 8 standing, including himself. 5 remained seated. The matter was decided. Prepare the boy. 2 Bears commanded. Standing Eagle, you will deliver him as promised. But hear this. His voice hardened. You watch. You visit. If harm comes to the child, you bring him home. If he asks to return, you bring him home. This is not a sale. This is trust. Fragile as spring ice. Break it, and the consequences fall on you. I understand. Grandfather. As the council dispersed, Broken Wing gripped Standing Eagle's arm. I pray the spirits forgive us. We send a lamb among wolves. Perhaps, Standing Eagle agreed. Or perhaps we plant a seed that will grow into understanding. Seeds need proper soil. That woman's heart is stone. Stone that weeps, Standing Eagle corrected. I've seen her tears. Stone can crack, water can flow, new things can grow. Later, Standing Eagle found Smallhawk sitting alone by the orphan's fire, staring at the flames. You spoke bravely in council. I spoke truth. The boy didn't look up. Will she really want me? I believe so, but you must be brave. Her ways will be strange. Her food, her clothes, her God, everything different. Different from what I own nothing. I am nothing. Standing Eagle knelt beside him. You are Numunu, the people. That will never change. No matter where you sleep or what tongue you speak. Remember that. Small Hawk finally met his eyes. Will you visit to see if she treats me well? Yes, I promise. The boy nodded, then asked quietly, What's her name, this white mother? Margaret Thornton. Margaret, Small Hawk repeated, tasting the foreign sounds. Will she let me keep my name? We'll ask, if not in public, then in private. Your true name lives in here. Standing Eagle touched the boy's chest. No one can take that. They sat in silence, watching the fire die to embers. Tomorrow, everything would change. A Comanche boy would gain a white mother. A grieving woman would gain a son. And two peoples who knew only hate might learn something else. Or it would end in disaster, as Broken Wing predicted. Standing Eagle touched the medicine bundle at his side, feeling the small items within a stone from the river where his son learned to swim. A feather from his first hunt. A bead from his naming ceremony. Talismans of a life cut short. Perhaps Small Hawk would live the years Little Fox couldn't. Perhaps Margaret Thornton's arms would hold what his could not. Perhaps grief shared could become something better than grief carried alone. The moon reached its peak, bathing the camp in silver light. One more day. Then the bridge would be built or burned. Standing Eagle prayed it would hold the weight of all their hopes. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Comanche camp as Standing Eagle made his way to where the orphaned children slept. Small Hawk sat apart from the others. Already dressed in his best clothing, a deer-hide shirt decorated with modest beadwork, leggings that showed careful mending. Someone, perhaps Spotted Fawn, had braided his hair properly and cleaned his face. You're ready, Standing Eagle observed. The boy nodded, clutching a small bundle. Everything I own? He attempted a smile. It won't slow down your horse. Standing Eagle saw what the bundle contained: a knife with a broken tip, a smooth river stone, a piece of blue cloth that might have been from his mother's dress. Treasures to a boy who had nothing. Come, we need to speak before we go. They walked to the edge of camp, where the horses waited. Standing Eagle had chosen carefully his own mount and a gentle mare for the boy. As they walked, other orphans watched from doorways, some with envy, some with pity, all with the hollow eyes of children who'd learned too young that life was loss. Small Hawk. Standing Eagle began, then stopped. How did one prepare a child for a new world? The woman who will be your mother, she is not like our women. She cannot tan hides or make pemmican. She doesn't know our stories or our prayers. What can she do? She can read the talking papers, make marks that carry words. She has a house that doesn't move, with rooms just for sleeping, just for cooking. Strange ways. Small Hawk absorbed this silently. Then, with that sharp perception that had kept him alive, he asked, Will she make me cut my hair? Perhaps white men wear their hair short. The boy's hand went to his braids. And my name will I be Small Hawk still. In her house, you may need a white name, but here, Standing Eagle touched the boy's chest. You will always be Small Hawk of the Numunu. They reached the horses. Standing Eagle lifted the boy onto the mare, noting how light he was. Too light. Hunger had carved hollows in his cheeks that no 9-year-old should carry. What if she changes her mind? Small Hawk asked quietly. When she sees me, then I bring you home. This isn't home. This is just where I sleep sometimes. The brutal honesty stung. Standing Eagle mounted his own horse. Perhaps you will find home with her. Perhaps. Small Hawk straightened his shoulders. I'm ready. They rode in silence at first, the camp falling away behind them. Standing Eagle watched the boy, saw how he turned for one last look, then faced forward with determination. Already learning to leave things behind. "My father," Smallhawk said suddenly. "He was Red Sky. My mother was Laughing Song. Will you remember their names?" "I will remember." "Good. Someone should." They rode through the morning, stopping once at a stream to water the horses. Smallhawk slid down. Moving stiffly, he wasn't used to riding for hours. Standing Eagle watched him drink, wash his face, try to smooth his hair. "You're nervous." "Yes." No point in denial. "What if I forget the right words? What if I shame you?" "You cannot shame me. You go with honor, as a bridge between peoples. That takes more courage than any war party." "Broken Wing doesn't think so. He says I'm a traitor." "Broken Wing sees only one path, but rivers find many ways to the sea." Standing Eagle paused. "Smallhawk, you must understand something. This woman, Margaret Thornton, she grieves like a wounded animal. Her pain may make her strange at first. Patient with her as she learns to be a mother again." "I need to learn to be a son again, too." The boy's voice was soft. "I've forgotten how—" They mounted and continued. The sun climbed higher, and the familiar landmarks appeared: the Red Rock Formation, the stand of cottonwoods. Finally, the distant shape of buildings that marked white settlement. "There." Standing Eagle pointed. "Her land begins at that fence." Smallhawk studied the wooden posts and wire with curiosity. "Why do they cage the earth?" "To say, this is mine. Whites need to own things, even land." "Can they own the sky too?" "They would if they could reach it." As they approached the ranch house, Standing Eagle felt the boy tense behind him. "Remember," he said, "you go as a gift, not a captive. Hold your head high." The house looked different in daylight, larger, more solid. Smoke rose from the chimney despite the warm day. As they rode closer, the door opened and Margaret Thornton stepped onto the porch. Standing Eagle heard Smallhawk's sharp intake of breath. The woman wore a blue dress today, hair pinned up, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles showed white. Her eyes went first to Standing Eagle, then to the boy, and something shifted in her face. Hope and fear warring for dominance. Standing Eagle dismounted first, then lifted Smallhawk down. The boy stood straight, chin up, meeting the white woman's gaze steadily. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Margaret Thornton did something unexpected. She came down the steps slowly and knelt in the dirt, bringing herself to the boy's eye level. "Hello," she said softly. "I'm Margaret." Smallhawk glanced at Standing Eagle, who nodded encouragement. "I am Smallhawk," the boy said in careful English. "I am 9 winters. My parents are dead. I can work hard." "Oh, child." Margaret's voice broke slightly. "I don't need you to work. I need you to be my son." "I don't know how to be a white son." "I don't know how to be a mother to a Comanche boy." She managed a trembling smile. "Perhaps we can learn together." Smallhawk studied her with that too-old wisdom. "You have water from your eyes." "Yes, happy tears, sad tears, all mixed together." She looked at Standing Eagle. "May I?" She gestured toward the boy. Standing Eagle spoke in Comanche to Smallhawk. "She asked permission to touch you. Your choice." The boy nodded. Margaret reached out slowly, her hand hovering near his face, giving him time to pull away. When he didn't, she gently touched his cheek. "You're real," she whispered. "You're really here." "Yes," Smallhawk said simply. "I'm here." Margaret stood, wiping her eyes. "Are you hungry? I have food inside. Beef stew and bread. Apple pie." "What's pie?" Smallhawk asked. "Something sweet. You'll like it, I think." She looked at Standing Eagle. "Will you come in, both of you?" Standing Eagle shook his head. "The boy must choose, but first we talk of terms." "Of course." Margaret's businesslike tone didn't quite hide her eagerness. "Please, what are your conditions?" I will return each full moon to see the boy. If he is mistreated, I take him back. Yes, of course. He keeps his name among the people. Whatever white name you give, his true name remains Smallhawk. Yes, in private. Certainly, in town. It might be safer. I understand, but he must not forget. He won't, I promise. He may speak Comanche when I visit. Tell stories of his people. You will not punish this. Never. He should know where he comes from. Margaret looked at the boy. I want you to be proud of your heritage, Smallhawk. You'll teach me about your people, and I'll teach you about mine. Is that acceptable? Smallhawk translated the exchange in his mind, then nodded. Acceptable. Standing Eagle knelt before the boy, speaking in Comanche. Be strong, little warrior. Remember who you are. I'll return when the moon is full again. You promise? I promise. Smallhawk suddenly hugged him, fierce and quick, then stepped back, composing himself. I'll be good. I'll make you proud. You already have. Standing Eagle mounted his horse, looking down at the unlikely pair, the white woman in her proper dress, the Comanche boy in his traditional clothes. Two different worlds, connected now by need and hope. One moon, he reminded Margaret. I will return. We'll be here, she assured him. Then, to Smallhawk. Shall we go inside? See your room? My room. The boy's eyes widened. Just for me. Just for you. As Standing Eagle rode away, he heard Smallhawk's voice, high and curious, asking questions about everything he saw, and Margaret's answers, patient and warm. Perhaps it would work. Perhaps love could bridge what hate had severed. Or perhaps Broken Wing was right, and this would end in sorrow. Time would tell. The moon would rise and fall, and he would return to check on the boy who carried the hopes of two grieving hearts. For now, it was enough that Smallhawk had a bed, food, and a woman who needed him as much as he needed her. The spirits would decide the rest. The dust from Standing Eagle's departure still hung in the air as Margaret led Smallhawk toward the house, her heart hammered against her ribs, part joy, part terror. The boy walked beside her, his steps careful and measured, dark eyes taking in everything. This is the porch, she said, then felt foolish. Of course he knew what a porch was. I mean, this is where I sit in the evenings. Perhaps you'd like to sit with me sometimes. Smallhawk nodded solemnly. I can sit very quiet. You don't have to be quiet. You can talk, laugh, make noise. Boys are supposed to make noise. She opened the door, watching his reaction. This is home now. The boy stepped inside slowly, as if entering a sacred space. His eyes widened at the furniture, the rugs, the pictures on the walls. He reached toward a lamp, then pulled his hand back. You can touch, Margaret said gently. Everything here is yours too now. Mine. He tested the word like a foreign taste. Ours, she corrected. We share this home. She led him through the parlor, past the kitchen, to the hallway with its row of doors. These are bedrooms. This one, she opened the second door. This is yours. Smallhawk stood frozen in the doorway. The room held a bed with a quilt, a dresser, a chair by the window. Simple furnishings. But she'd added things in the past days, a wooden horse on the dresser, books on the shelf, though she didn't know if he could read, a rug with patterns that reminded her of Indian designs she'd seen. The bed is very big, he whispered. Is it too big I could find a smaller? No. He stepped inside, running his hand along the quilt. I've never had a big bed, only blankets on the ground. Margaret's throat tightened. Well, you have one now, and look, she opened the dresser drawers. I bought some clothes. I had to guess at the size. We'll go to town soon, get proper measurements. Smallhawk fingered the cotton shirts and pants. White boy clothes. For town, yes, but you can wear your own clothes here if you prefer. Whatever makes you comfortable. He looked at her then, really looked, with those two wise eyes. "Why did you want me?" The directness of the question stole her breath. She sat on the bed, patting the space beside her. After a moment's hesitation, he joined her, perched like a bird ready to fly. "I had 3 children," she said slowly. "They died very young. My husband died too. This house became—" She searched for words he'd understand. "Like a tomb, empty, silent. I needed life in it again. I needed someone to care for." "And you picked an enemy's child?" "Are you my enemy, small hawk?" He considered this. "I don't know. My father died fighting white soldiers, but you didn't kill him." "No, and you didn't kill my husband. We're just 2 people who've lost too much. Maybe together we can find something again." Small Hawk digested this. "Standing Eagle says you'll give me a white name. For safety in town, yes, but here, you're Small Hawk if you wish." She hesitated. "I thought perhaps, David, it means beloved." "David," he repeated. "David Thornton. If you're willing, but you keep your real name too. Your parents gave you that name. It stays yours forever." Something shifted in his face, a loosening of tension she hadn't realized was there. "David for whites, Small Hawk for me." "Yes." "I accept this trade." Margaret smiled at the formal phrasing. "Are you hungry? I promised pie." His stomach growled in response, making them both laugh, a small sound, but genuine. In the kitchen, she served beef stew, watching him eat with careful efficiency. No movement wasted. When she brought out the apple pie, his eyes widened. "It's sweet food. Very sweet. Try it." He took a small bite, then closed his eyes. "This is good. Very good." "There's plenty more. You can have as much as you want. Now, whenever you're hungry, the pantry is full. You never have to be hungry here. Sam, David, never again." He set down his fork carefully. "In return, what do you want?" "I told you, I want a son." "But what does that mean? What work do I do?" Margaret reached across the table, not quite touching his hand. "Being a son isn't work. It's letting me care for you. Going to school to learn, playing, growing, maybe helping with chores sometimes, but mainly just being here, being yourself." "I don't know how to play, not white children's games." "Then teach me Comanche games. We'll learn together." They finished eating in comfortable silence. As Margaret cleared the dishes, Small Hawk explored the kitchen, opening drawers, examining utensils. She let him, remembering what he'd said about owning nothing. "What's this?" He held up an egg beater. "For mixing eggs. I'll show you tomorrow. We can make breakfast together." "I can gather eggs. I'm not afraid of chickens." "Good. They can be mean sometimes." That earned another small smile. "Meaner than white people." Margaret paused, unsure if he was joking. The slight upturn of his mouth suggested he was. "Some chickens are definitely meaner than some people." "Then I'll be careful." As evening approached, the question of the gold arose. Margaret had prepared half, as promised. She brought the wrapped bars to the table. "This is for Standing Eagle to take back, for your people." Small Hawk stared at the gold. "This is much wealth. It's worth nothing compared to you being here. Whites kill for gold." "Some do, but I'd rather have a living son than all the gold in Texas." He touched one bar gently. "My people need food more than gold. They can trade it for food, supplies, whatever they need." She rewrapped the bars carefully. "When Standing Eagle returns, we'll give it to him." "You trust him to come back?" "He gave his word. Do Comanche warriors break their word?" "Never," Small Hawk said firmly. "Death before dishonor." As night fell, the question of bedtime arose. Margaret showed him the washroom, the indoor pump that fascinated him, the chamber pot he viewed with suspicion. She laid out a nightshirt, then hesitated. "I'll say good night now. If you need anything at all, my room is just across the hall. You can wake me." Smallhawk stood by the window in his new nightshirt, looking small and lost. "What if I have bad dreams?" "Then you come to me. I'll sit with you until they pass." "My mother used to sing when I had bad dreams." His voice was barely audible. "I don't remember the words anymore." Margaret's heart broke a little more. "Would you like me to sing? I know different songs, but maybe sometime, not tonight." "Whenever you're ready." She moved to the door, then turned back. "Smallhawk David, I'm glad you're here, so very glad." He met her eyes. "I'll try to be a good son. I don't know how, but I'll try." "And I'll try to be a good mother. We'll figure it out together." She closed the door softly, then stood in the hallway, listening. Heard him moving around the room, testing the bed, opening drawers. Normal sounds. Living sounds in a house that had been dead too long. In her own room, Margaret sat on her bed and finally let the tears come. Joy, grief, fear, hope all mixed together. Tomorrow would bring challenges. The town would talk. Marshal Kane would cause trouble. There would be mistakes and misunderstandings and cultural chasms to bridge. But tonight, a child slept under her roof, a boy who needed her as much as she needed him. The cradle by the window would stay empty. Smallhawk was too old for cradles, but the rooms would fill with life again, with noise and questions and maybe, eventually, laughter. Through the thin walls, she heard him settling into bed, the creak of springs as he tested this new softness. Then silence, but a living silence, a breathing presence that changed everything. Margaret whispered a prayer of thanks to whoever might be listening, then prepared for bed herself. Tomorrow, their real journey would begin, learning each other, building trust, creating a family from the ashes of loss. Tonight, it was enough that he was here, that when morning came, she wouldn't wake to an empty house, that someone needed her again. In his room, Smallhawk lay rigid in the too-soft bed, staring at the ceiling. Everything smelled different here, soap and wood polish and something he couldn't name. Clean smells, safe smells, maybe. He thought of the camp, wondered if anyone noticed his empty sleeping place. Probably not. Orphans were like shadows there, but not there. But this white woman, Margaret, mother, she saw him, looked right at him like he was real, said he could make noise, said he'd never be hungry. He touched the full belly, still marveling at the sweet pie. Closed his eyes and tried to remember his mother's song. The words wouldn't come, but the feeling did. Safe, wanted, home. Maybe this could work. Maybe a Comanche boy could become a white woman's son. Maybe love didn't care about blood or skin or the crimes of their peoples. Smallhawk David pulled the soft blanket to his chin and let sleep take him. For the first time in 2 years, he didn't dream of death. He dreamed of apple pie and a woman with kind eyes who said he could make noise. Margaret woke to the sound of movement in the kitchen. For a moment, panic seized her, then she remembered. Smallhawk, David, her son. She found him standing by the window, fully dressed in his Comanche clothes, watching the sunrise paint the prairie gold. He turned at her approach, uncertainty in his eyes. "I didn't take anything," he said quickly, "just looking." "This is your home. You can look at anything, take anything. Are you hungry?" He nodded, and she busied herself with breakfast, showing him how to work the stove's damper, where she kept the eggs, how to slice bread evenly. He absorbed everything with that intense focus, as if memorizing might save his life someday. "Today, I thought we might go to town," Margaret said carefully. "Get you registered for school, pick up supplies." Smallhawk's hand stilled on his bread. "School. All children go to school here, to learn reading, writing, arithmetic. I know some English letters. Standing Eagle taught me." "That's wonderful. You'll learn quickly then." She hesitated. "In town, you'll need to be David, for safety." He nodded slowly. "I understand. And my hair— Margaret had dreaded this. It would be safer cut short, but here at home— Cut it! His voice was flat. If I'm to be David, I must look like David. After breakfast, Margaret fetched Samuel's scissors. Her hands shook as she worked, each falling braid a small betrayal. Smallhawk sat perfectly still, eyes closed, as his identity fell away strand by strand. When she finished, a different boy stared back from the mirror, still unmistakably Indian in features. But the short hair changed everything, made him younger somehow, more vulnerable. "You look handsome," Margaret said softly. "I look like nobody," he replied, then straightened his shoulders. "But nobody is safe." The ride to town tested every maternal instinct Margaret had forgotten she possessed. Smallhawk David now sat beside her in the wagon wearing his new white boy clothes, looking smaller than ever. As they passed other travelers, she saw their stares, their double takes, their disapproval. In Clearwater, it was worse. Women pulled their children close. Men tracked their progress with hard eyes. Margaret kept her chin high, her hand resting protectively on David's shoulder. The general store fell silent when they entered. Mrs. Henderson, who'd brought casseroles when Samuel died, now looked through Margaret like she was glass. "I need supplies," Margaret said evenly, "and clothes for my son." "Your son, Mr. Henderson's voice dripped disbelief. "My adopted son, David." "That's a heathen savage, not a son." David flinched. Margaret's grip on his shoulder tightened. "He's a child who needed a home. I'd like 2 pairs of boots, size small, and fabric for shirts." They were served, grudgingly. Charged double, she noticed, but didn't protest. At the schoolhouse, Miss Patricia Wells, the schoolmarm, proved even more difficult. "I cannot have a wild Indian disrupting my classroom." "He's not wild. He speaks English, knows his letters. He wants to learn." "What he wants is irrelevant. The other parents—" "The law says all children must attend school," Margaret interrupted. "Are you refusing to follow the law?" Miss Wells's mouth pursed like she'd bitten a lemon. "He sits in the back. Any trouble any at all and he's out." "Understood." Outside, David finally spoke. "She doesn't want me there." "No, but you have a right to learn. Sometimes we must take what's ours even when others would deny it." "Is that what you did, took me even though others said no?" Margaret stopped walking, knelt to his level despite the dusty street. "I didn't take you. You were given a gift. The best gift I've ever received." Something in his face softened. "Even with all this trouble, especially with all this trouble, anything worth having is worth fighting for." Marshal Kane was waiting by their wagon, badge glinting in the sun. "Mrs. Thornton, heard you brought some interesting property to town." "My son isn't property, Marshal." "Your son." Kane circled them slowly. "Funny how you went from needing horses to having a Comanche brat. Makes a lawman wonder what really got traded." "I've broken no laws." "Maybe, maybe not, but I'll be watching. This boy causes any trouble, shows any sign of signaling his murdering kin. I'll handle it, permanent-like." David pressed closer to Margaret. She stood, placing herself between the marshal and her son. "You threaten a child." "I protect this town from savages. Don't matter their size." Kane tipped his hat mockingly. "Ma'am, boy." They drove home in tense silence. Only when the ranch came into view did David speak. "He wants to kill me." "I won't let him." "You can't stop bullets." The matter-of-fact tone chilled her. "No, but I can make sure he has no reason to shoot. You'll be the best student, the quietest boy. Give them nothing to complain about. And if that's not enough, then we'll face that when it comes." That evening, as Margaret prepared supper, she watched David explore his new home more freely. He found Samuel's old books, running his fingers over the letters. Discovered the checkers set, puzzling over the board. Each discovery was tentative, as if pleasure might be snatched away. "My husband liked to play checkers," Margaret offered. "I could teach you." "I'd like that." They played after dinner, David catching on quickly. Strategy came naturally to him, survival skills translated to game boards. As they played, he began to relax, even smiled when he captured her king. "You're clever," Margaret said. "I had to be." Simple statement of fact. "Stupid orphans don't last long." "You're not an orphan anymore." He looked up from the board. "What am I then?" "My son, David Thornton, when we're in town. Smallhawk, son of Red Sky and Laughing Song. When we're alone, both real, both true." Standing Eagle said, "I might forget who I am." "Then we'll make sure you remember. Tell me about your parents. What do you remember?" Slowly, haltingly, he began to speak. His mother's laugh, his father's strong hands, the design his mother beaded on his first shirt, the song his father sang while sharpening knives. Small memories, precious as gold. Margaret listened, storing each detail. These were the threads that would keep him whole, part of two worlds instead of lost between them. When bedtime came, David hesitated at his door. "Last night I dreamed of my mother." "Good dreams." "Sad dreams, but also good," she said. He struggled for words. "She said it was okay to have a new mother. That love isn't like food, it doesn't run out." Margaret's eyes burned. "Your mother was wise." "Yes, she was." He entered his room, then turned back. "Margaret, mother, I don't know what to call you." "Whatever feels right, there's no hurry." "Tomorrow, will you show me the graves, your children?" The question surprised her. "If you'd like. I think I should know them, if I'm taking their place." "Oh, David, sweet boy, you're not taking anyone's place. You're making your own." But the next morning, she led him to the 3 small graves. He studied them solemnly, then did something unexpected. From his pocket, he pulled 3 small stones, river smooth, carefully chosen. "For their spirits," he explained, placing one on each grave. "So they know they're not forgotten." Margaret wept then. Couldn't help it. David stood beside her, not touching but present, until the storm passed. "Thank you," she whispered. "They were lucky," he said quietly, "to have a mother who still cries for them." They walked back to the house hand in hand. In the kitchen, Margaret showed him how to make biscuits, laughing when flour dusted his nose. He helped her gather eggs, proud when the mean rooster didn't chase him. Small things, daily things, but each one a stitch binding them together. That night, as Margaret wrote in her journal, she could hear David in his room, singing softly in Comanche. The words she couldn't understand, but the melody was sweet. A lullaby, perhaps his mother's song, remembered at last. She thought of Standing Eagle, somewhere under the same stars. In 3 weeks, he would return. Would he find a thriving boy or a broken one? Would this fragile bridge hold? Outside, a coyote howled, answered by another. Wild voices in the darkness, reminding her that 2 worlds existed side by side, sometimes touching, rarely understanding. But in this house, for now, there was peace. A boy learning to trust, a woman learning to mother again. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Margaret closed her journal and prepared for bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, school starting, town prejudice, the constant vigilance against those who would harm her son. But tonight, she fell asleep to the sound of Comanche lullabies and thanked God, the spirits, and sheer luck for bringing Smallhawk to her door. The empty cradle by the window no longer mocked her. It had served its purpose, holding hope until hope took human form. Now it could rest, while life bloomed in unexpected ways. A Comanche boy and a white woman, building family from ashes. It shouldn't work. Most said it couldn't work. But love had its own laws, stronger than hate, patient as prairie grass. And sometimes that was enough. Thank you for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying these tales from the Wild West, whether you're listening during your commute, relaxing at home, or perhaps somewhere unexpected. Please subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts about Margaret and Smallhawk's journey in the comments below. Your stories and connections make our community special.